My name's Bill Holland, and today we're here to celebrate the life of a guy I've known all his life, my brother Mike. You remember the Smothers Brothers show and the line, "Mom always liked you best"? Well, that's the story of my brother. Things were going great for us in 1945. The World War was wrapping up, and on the home front, my two older sisters and I had become the king. I was the firstborn boy in the family. For 5 years, I was spoiled. And then, out of the blue, my mom comes home with my baby brother, Mike, or as he was named, Michael Ayers Holland, the Ayers being a family name. Well, did my world change. He was one cute kid. So cute, in fact, we called him Mickey. Now, if that isn't a cuddly name. My two sisters, 9 and 7 at the time, couldn't have said more oohs and ahs and cuckoos and choo-choos and so many different names that it was just plain gooey. My sisters were his babysitters, and at his beck and call, well, I figured eventually I'd have somebody to play ball with. And that was the start of my brother being an only child, and Mom liking him best. Fast forward over 2 years. Mom and Dad have split. We moved from our house 3 blocks off of Lake Michigan in Highland Park, Illinois, to our uncle's turkey ranch in Muskogee, Oklahoma. If you don't think you can't find anything to do on a turkey ranch, guess again. Mike, Mary, and I had rabbits to pet, turkeys to chase, puppies to love, and watch eggs hatch. We had clod fights against imaginary enemies, places to build forts in our Uncle John's hay barn, and then in the summer, we had all the watermelons we wanted to kick open and eat the hearts from. There was one particular afternoon I won't forget. I was swinging a small axe in circles, being stupid, and Mike walked up to see what I was doing. Well, I slightly hit him over the eyebrow, and he ran into the house telling Mom I had hatched him. Another time when the two of us were playing together with matches. I know what you're thinking, and you're right. We burned about 10 acres of the adjoining property. A few years later, we moved to town. It was still a good adventure for Mickey and I. We played kick the can with my sisters and I, and we'd always win. When I got a bike, Mike and I would take off with him riding the side saddle, and off we'd go exploring. It was a good time to grow up in a good place. In the summer of 1952, we moved to California, and a year later to Odessa, Texas, where Mom was the superintendent of nurses. This is where Mickey and I split up. The age thing caught up to us, with me in junior high and Mickey in grade school. Time seemed to fly. The 5-year age difference caught us. Like a blur, I was leaving for college, and Mike was in the 8th grade. He was learning to play the horn, a saxophone, I think, and planning to be a musician. He had become the only child. When I got to college, the first thing that happened to me was a required physics class closed before I could get in it. Mom was devastated that I had suddenly become a 6-year major in architecture. But for Mike and I, it turned out to be a blessing. In the summer of my sophomore year, when I got home, there was a 1950 Nash, you know, the one that looked like an inverted bathtub. Mike was showing his business skills. He had paid $50 for this beauty. There was just one problem. There was no title for it. And to this day, I still don't know what happened to that car or how long it sat by the side of our house. When Mike was a sophomore in high school, he was in the years I'll refer to as BN, that's before Nancy. He was apparently a hot commodity with the girls. You know, good looking, cute, that sort of thing, but without a driver's license. So he started dating a senior, and sure enough, he went to the senior prom. It was kind of unheard of for a sophomore to go to the senior prom with a senior girl. On to college, my 3rd senior year, and Mike's first year at Texas Tech. It was great. He pledged the same fraternity that I was in, and we had good times being brothers again. At Thanksgiving that year, he and two of his pledge brothers showed up at our house for Turkey Day in Odessa. 2 turkeys and 1 ham later, our mother sat in shock as we cleaned up the pie before heading back to school. We were both in ROTC, and while I went to Vietnam, Mike's colonel tore his contract up over a grade issue and turned him in to the draft board. Not to be deterred, Mike joined the Army. By this time, he and Nancy were married. His Army career took him to El Paso and to advanced training, which sent him to Illinois as a cartographer. Because of his high security clearance, he could not be shipped out of the country. After leaving the service, Mike and Nancy ended up in our town, Corpus Christi, where he worked for an accounting firm and wrote computer programs. From there, Mike and Nancy moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and on to Longmont. The years in Corpus Christi were good for Beverly and I and Mike and Nancy. Then, over the years, our paths crossed many years and our families grew. We developed a telephone relationship. Mike was diversifying. As he grew older, he became extremely gifted in the design and creation of jewelry. I treasured the ring he made me one Christmas, but when he got into stained glass, he found his real niche. We got together for the boys' weddings, good times. We made several family reunions, and our last one was going great till I suffered a heart attack watching the Spurs play with Mike and all the other family members. According to Mike, I really put a damper on the deal. One of the best times I had with Mike and Nancy was in Longmont for his birthday. It was magic. We took a trip to the Rockies and to the Front Range. The ice and snow were still on the ground, and the wild game was still moving around. The lakes were frozen, the ground was slick, the Rockies were beautiful. We drove around a lot in the Longmont area, looking at housing, new buildings, and we talked and talked. By the time I discovered Mike was much a conservative as I was, so we commenced talking about what we liked and disliked in the political arena. That didn't take long, since we both thought the same way. I always thought that Mike and I had this unique gift where we would talk about a subject, stop for 6 months, and then pick up the same subject right where we left off. We talked about church and how we had developed our love of the Lord, and what we loved about our individual churches. Though our lives changed, this much I know about my brother. He loved his Lord first and always. He loved this country, and he really loved his wife Nancy and his boys Andrew and Joshua, for they were really his life. I will miss him, but I will see him again in the future, and we will pick up just where we left off. Thank you.